It's I'm Gonna Stop Right There, the podcast that debates the burning topics in sports.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 3 now. Is that week 3? Am I right on that?
Yes.
So I got my week straight. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Week 3 of the I'm Gonna Stop You Right There podcast. I'm Tyler Ader. I'm joined by Cooper Sherman. We are without Matt tonight. He just had some scheduling conflicts and couldn't make it, but it's okay. We still got a great show for you. We got a lot of topics to discuss here. And I think some really good topics. These are some of my I like these topics a bit more than I have the topics in past weeks. So yeah, we'll dive right in. It might be a bit of a shorter episode because we're missing Matt tonight, but that's just fine.
Oh man!
So
it's like we're so busy. All of us are so busy. We were talking about it in the group chat earlier, and we just couldn't seem to find a time for all three of us to meet, and usually we have it uploaded by Wednesday. We're recording it on Wednesday, and it's just like, it's really tough to do a podcast when two of the three members are full-time college students and they've got so many things going on during the day. It's a miracle we even do this, but we do it for the fans, for whatever fans are watching.
It's all for the people. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this will go up probably tomorrow sometime, I'm assuming. So maybe we can give just a short game pick for our Thursday night, for the Thursday night football action.
I see.
But we'll see what happens at the end here. Yeah. But it's a pretty unremarkable game tomorrow night, as far as I'm concerned, at least. But without, either way, we can go from there and see what happens. But so just to start, we're gonna start off the same way we did last week, kind of make this a running thing. The opening segment, we're just gonna each give our favorite moment from the weekend. And funny enough, our favorite moments this week, both of us, are field goals. And that's something that I did not anticipate. I'm sure if Matt was here, a field goal would be in the running because this was a great week for field goal kickers, at least a few of them. So my favorite moment of the week was Mason Crosby's 51-yard game-winning field goal against San Francisco on Sunday night. And the reason this is my favorite moment is actually kind of twofold. The first fold being Packer fans, at least, will remember a couple years back when Mason Crosby kind of had a very down year. He seemed out of sorts. He was missing field goals. I think he missed something like 8 field goals that year. And there was a lot of talk. This was back when Mike McCarthy was the head coach. And there was a lot of talk about cutting him. He's old. He's past his prime. I believe they even brought in kickers and we're working out kickers and things like that. So it was a real issue, and it was affecting games in a big way. It was hard to trust Mason Crosby in big moments, especially in a moment like this. So it's pretty remarkable to me to see him come back from that and to see the Packers stick with him and have confidence in him. Then all the way to now where he's hitting this game winner. And just in kind of reading the news and the hype around the Packers this week after that game, the kind of message has been that this was a statement game. This was one that really showed who they can be going forward. And it was a much bigger deal than just a 3-point win on paper. And the second fold for why this is my favorite moment of the week was the reaction from Aaron Rodgers on the sideline. And this might have actually gotten more media attention than the field goal itself. And I think partly that's because there was a lot of people in the media and fans and just everybody who knows something about the NFL. After week 1, they were like, he doesn't care. He's not into it. I forgot who said this. Former player on I wish I had I should have pulled up the link to this, but he said something to the effect of, look, if you've already contemplated retiring, you're done, right? You've in essence retired. But seeing his reaction on the sideline to this, it looks like just the pure opposite, right? This looks like a rookie in the league who's just as hyped as anybody to have a win, and a big win like this on the road. It was San Fran's home opener. missing a lot of pieces on the offensive line. Just a really big game. So that was definitely one of my favorite Packer moments. And I've been a fan for since I could talk. So yeah, it was a great moment. Koopa, was yours.
Great. So no surprise, I don't think it is really. That if it's a field goal from this weekend, it was the Justin Tucker field goal to win the game against the Lions at the last second, 19-17 win for the Ravens. And it was an NFL record 66-yard field goal from Justin Tucker. So that was pretty remarkable. It's that record has been in place since Matt Prater did it in 2013, and that
what was the record?
It was 64 yards.
64. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeez, that's it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd.
Justin Tucker is amazing, and I've heard that people are saying, is Justin Tucker like the greatest kicker of all time now? And I think you could certainly argue that he's had not just, this game or this year, he's had a string of years where he's been the most accurate kicker in the NFL. Right. And yeah, he really is just something special, and he's got quite a leg on him. And the thing about that field goal was that because it's doinked on the crossbar, as it's coined, I thought at first, because it sort of went straight up, I think, when it first hit the crossbar. So I thought at first it doinked and then didn't go through. So I was like, well, it's tough. That's a long field goal.
66 yards. It's
yeah. And then I actually saw that it went through, and I saw this live, and my roommate and I were like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. And it was like they just won the game right there. That was incredible. And of course the announcers are in shock. The fans are in shock because they're playing in Detroit, and everybody was in shock. So it was just quite an end to the game right there.
I'm sure Lions fans, I didn't even really think about the fact that they were playing Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Are the Lions cursed? Like, that's not that much of a joke of a question. Are they seriously cursed?
I think they are. I think they have to be. Maybe just the whole city of Detroit is cursed.
That could be too. That could be too. Well, yeah. I mean, both incredible moments. If I wasn't such a big Packers fan, that most definitely would have taken the cake. By far a better kick. That is just 66 yards is. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. So
yeah.
Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So with that, we're going to move on to a bit more of a bleak topic here. So both of us, a few weeks back, I wrote an article for Jersey Column about vaccine holdouts in the NFL. And you have an article planned about NBA holdouts, Bradley Beal and Kyrie Irving. So we're just going to talk about that. I haven't done, I'll be frank here, I haven't done my research into these two cases specifically, the Beal case and the Irving case. I did see something about Kevin Durant coming to the defense of Kyrie Irving. But I'm going to let you kind of set the stage for this, give some context, what's going on here. And, we can move from there, but maybe just set the stage for the people like myself that aren't super familiar with this story.
Yeah, so this has been a developing story, and it's a big issue because players that are not vaccinated will, like for Kyrie Irving, in New York, you're not allowed in big arenas without proof of vaccination. So that's going to be a really tough situation for Kyrie Irving and the Nets if he's not able to play in, half or a big percentage of their games this season. So, yeah, I
Just
don't
to
know.
stop you right there, have these players, either Kyrie or Bradley Beal, have they made any kind of public announcement about their hesitancy? Have they addressed it? Have they come out and said anything to the effect of, I'm planning on doing it, I just haven't gotten around to it, or no, I'm like Cole Beasley and I refuse?
Um, I did say I did see Kyrie Irving and Bradley Beal talk about it during a press conference that I saw on Sports Center last night. I don't think they said exactly why they're not they have chosen not to get it yet, but I definitely don't think they just haven't gone around to it. I think
Right.
they definitely have some hesitancy. I think it's safe to say that Kyrie Irving is an anti-vaxxer as well as Bradley Beal also. Kyrie Irving, maybe you've forgotten this, but Kyrie Irving once said that he believes the earth is flat.
I was just gonna say that it's expected from Kyrie.
So
yeah,
it's a lot of this is a term I use a lot nowadays. Unfortunately, it's like, I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised.
Right. Yes, that's the phrase of the last 2 years, I'd say, at this point.
Yeah, a lot of things happening.
Like honestly,
like on like a similar topic, like people using a horse deworming drug ivermectin to protect themselves against COVID instead of getting the COVID vaccine, and then like there's a shortage on like animal medicine. Is just like, oh God, what is the world? Why is this happening?
I find myself questioning whether or not I'm dreaming. Like a bad dream multiple times throughout the day these days. But so at this point, I guess what might help, if you're open to this, we did not discuss this prior to recording here, but maybe you want to give a preview of what you're going to discuss in your article, and then from there we can kind of pin some discussion off of that, if you're comfortable with it.
I definitely have some points that I think I'm going to bring up. Well, just about getting the vaccine itself, I will say I'm not a big shots person. Never have been. I don't like needles. I've always had a fear of shots. I was, like would cry when my mom said that we were going to the doctor to get shots like HPV and the regular ones that you have to get at a certain age, stuff like that. But this is like, it's so important, and it can do so much, and it's proven that vaccines do work. Like, people say, well, why are people? I think no. This is what Bradley Beal said. He said, if you guys are vaccinated, why are you still getting COVID? And it's just like, well, it's not like the COVID vaccine has 100%.
And see, so I'm gonna stop you right there. I think this actually gets to the heart of the issue, just across the board in sports and in the general population. It's that the campaign of misinformation around this issue and other issues, to be frank, but this issue specifically has become so strong. It's become dogmatic, and there's no way in. There's no way to argue against it. No amount of logic and rational point A to point B, no amount of evidence, physical, concrete evidence, will be enough, because they'll just continue to move the goalposts. Before it was, well, it's not approved by the FDA. Okay, well, here's your approval. Well, okay, now we'll just move the goalpost back a little more and say it's a personal choice and my body, my choice type of thing. And that's what it's going to remain, I think, until mandates are put in place. We have seatbelt laws. And if the argument is, a law leads to a snowball effect, that didn't happen with seatbelt laws. It didn't happen with just a slew of other regulations that are imparted upon the public for the safety of everyone, right? And I touched on a few of these points in the article I wrote about the NFL, just about how it brings down the team, about how it's selfish. But I feel like we've gotten to a point now of almost of no return, where it's either going to be, we're going to have to just accept the fact that people are going to keep dying and people are going to keep getting sick, or we're going to have to put mandates in place. And if Kyrie Irving can't play half the season or an entire season because the NBA grows some nuts and says it's mandated now for teams, everybody has to have the vaccine, so be it. Then he's hurting his team, he's hurting his city, and he's hurting himself and his family. I just think that that's the impasse that we're at right now. The point of being patient and holding the hands of those that, like Bradley Beal, is just, why are people getting COVID? Well, you just obviously haven't taken the time to understand what's happening. You haven't taken the time to understand reality as it is. You've just taken on board some piece of misinformation that confirms some already held bias and ran with it. And at what point do we stop holding hands and do we be the adults in the room and say, okay, like when a mother says to her child, you have to go to bed at 8 o'clock, but the child says, no, I'm not tired, I don't want to. The mother wins. The child goes to bed because that's what's best for the child, right? So I think that's the impasse we're at. Excuse me. I think that this misinformation has become too dogmatic to even penetrate with argument, and people that are still holding out, it's absurd. It's selfish. It's narcissistic. It's kind of beyond belief, but at a certain point, we're going to have to rip the Band-Aid off and mandate these things across the board.
I don't know. There's a slew of other things I could say, like, as I said, I'm not a shots person. I got, when I forgot my first dose, I was like, wait, did you put it in yet? Just like, right. I did. It was just like, wow, that was pretty easy.
I felt that the COVID test was far more invasive and uncomfortable than the shot itself. Getting the shot was, of course, there's the side effects of feeling ill for a day. I definitely felt ill for a day after both shots.
Some people don't,
right, some people don't, and some people don't.
I think the clinician that gave me my vaccine said, well, this isn't confirmed, but it could be what your blood type is. Anyway, I think it that is a great point of what you said. Like, there's so much evidence, in support of vaccines, but there'll just be some outlying information that there'll always be something that will get people to go against it, just because that's what they've decided they're going to do. And
right.
Another,
I just want to go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Another big thing that was just announced a couple of hours ago is that if unvaccinated players can't play in their home arenas, they won't be paid, which has been a thing in the NFL. If like unvaccinated players like cause an outbreak within the team, that game won't be made up and they'll just forfeit that game. So it really brings it to another level of, this isn't just a personal choice, as you said. You're hurting the team and your surrounding community by doing this. That's what anti-vaxxers don't think about is that it's bigger than them. You could get other people sick, people that are more high risk, like old people, for getting the vaccine. But if there are any,
and that's that's another a great point, is that this isn't a personal choice in the sense that, like, for example, my girlfriend works with a lady. I believe she's middle-aged. She might be elderly, but that's beside the point. The point is she has some condition whereby she can't get vaccinated. It is physically unsafe for her to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
And I should preface anything I've said about vaccine people that haven't gotten the vaccine. Obviously, that does not apply to those who are physically unable to because of some pre-existing
there are
condition.
medical exemptions, definitely.
Right, exactly. So this lady has this medical exemption, and that's not a small portion of our population. It's a significant portion of our population that simply can't get vaccinated. And that's who we are doing this for. Are we going to rise to the occasion as a society and pick those up who physically can't stand up themselves, or are we going to be selfish? And like and I just want to one of the things that I really touched on in my article about the NFL and vaccine holdouts in the NFL was this point about humility. And one of the last arguments that I left it on that I just want to put out there for the podcast is that, look, if I'll rework the analogy so that it works for Bradley Beal and Kyrie Irving. I would say to Kyrie Irving and Bradley Beal, if playing basketball was a suitable inoculation against COVID-19, we would undoubtedly enlist Kyrie Irving, Bradley Beal, and other NBA and WNBA players, to fight the disease, because they're the experts at playing basketball. So it should be no different when we enlist medical experts to solve a medical problem. There should be no questioning. If I were to go up to Kyrie Irving and say, I'm better at basketball than you, he'd be able to say, well, look at all this evidence. Look at the years of experience that I have. Look at all these games I've played in. Look at all the practice I've taken under my belt. I'm an expert. You're not an expert. Like that should be all it takes. And it's kind of absurd that you can spend half an hour on YouTube and think that you are more qualified than somebody who's spent their entire adult life studying, virology or, epidemiology or, you name it. But yeah, it's just absurd. I'm not surprised about Kyrie Irving. I don't know enough about Bradley Beal. He's not as vocal a player on social media forums and things like that. Yeah. But it's absurd. He's hurting his community. Both of them are hurting their community, their teammates, their team overall. I'm over the coddling at this point. At this point I'm mostly just outraged at these people that won't get on board, that won't rise to the moment that humanity has found itself in. So well, one more thing is that the NFL and NBA and probably several other sports leagues, but the NFL and the NBA most prominently, they've walked the line well. And I talked about this in my article about Cam Newton earlier, is that they're not outright mandating it, saying you have to get vaccinated, but they're just saying, okay, you can choose not to get vaccinated, but if you test positive for the virus and you have an outbreak within the team, then here's what's going to happen. You won't be able to make it up, and you won't be paid for for that game. So it's like they're sort of strongly encouraging people to get vaccinated because of that, but they're saying, hey, we're not mandating it. So I think that's a good strategy.
I also wouldn't be surprised if they just ended up mandating it because, players aren't listening, but also it's not like people are like unvaccinated players are definitely going to get COVID, but as research has shown, vaccinated people are 10 times less likely to test positive for COVID.
Right.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. I think that the NFL, for sure, I feel like that's a model. Given what we talked about just to start this conversation, the fact that the conversation has become so dogmatic and so hard to penetrate with argument, I feel like the NFL's model on responding to this is the right one, right? It keeps, politically speaking, it keeps everyone happy, or at least it doesn't outright, talk in the face of those who are vaccine hesitant. So yeah, I completely agree with that point. And I also just want to leave it with one more thing. I do think that there's a difference between everyday Joe Schmo, like you and I. Say one of us or both of us chose not to get the vaccine as a quote unquote personal choice. That's a whole lot different than an NBA player, an NFL player, somebody with a platform not getting the vaccine.
Yeah.
These people's platform, incurs with it a certain responsibility. And that responsibility is kind of thrust into the spotlight in unprecedented moments, such as the one we find ourselves in now. So I truly hope that those two get vaccinated. Not because I'm particularly big fans of the teams that they play for, just because I want to see humanity come together on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can leave it there. I could go on for hours. It would all just be a cesspool of outrage at this point. But
yeah.
But yeah, everybody go check out Coop's article on Jersey Column when it's up here. You have an ETA end of the week sometime. I'm assuming it'll go up.
Yeah, I don't know. As I said, I'm a busy guy, so I don't know.
Well, keep coming back to the website for all of those loyal fans out there and check out his article for more detailed information on this topic. So, with that, let's move on to some more sport related type things. So let's talk about the Bears. And specifically about Matt Nagy. A couple things. So Justin Fields got his first game action last week, and it went terribly. Just all around, terrible.
Couldn't have been much worse.
Honestly, it couldn't have been. So the main questions here, and I'll back up one step here. And then after the game, Matt Nagy has said this week that all three quarterbacks, Nick Foles, Andy Dalton, and Justin Fields, are all on the table, all in the running to start this week. So the main questions here are, was rolling out Justin Fields this week too early? Did they do this too early? And what exactly are we to make of Matt Nagy? What's this guy up to? What's going on here?
Why haven't they fired him yet is the question. That's the question, or the demand of a lot of people on Bears social media pages. It's just fire Matt Nagy already. Geez, this guy does not know how to run a football team at all. Maybe just fire the general manager, Ryan Pace, too. Just this Bears organization is just a dumpster fire.
And that's part of my my whole thought process with this, is that for the question of was it too early for Justin Fields, as a player, like in a vacuum, probably not. If you had a better situation, a better team around him, he probably would succeed. He passes the eye test, so to speak, right? But this Bears team is a dumpster fire. It's reminiscent to me of the state of the Jets when they rolled out Sam Darnold.
Oh yeah.
Matt Nagy was smart not to roll Justin Fields out to start the season, and hopefully he did that because he was at least cognizant of the state of his own team. Now, Matt Nagy is signed through 2022. I believe his contract expires next season. That would be at the end of this season. So we'll see what they do with him after that. But yeah, it'd be too early for any rookie quarterback to come into a situation where there's just not the pieces in place for him or really anybody to have success. So yes, it 100% was too early even this week to roll him out. And this whole having 3 quarterbacks on the table, it really seems like that translates to something like, I have no goddamn idea what I'm doing here.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Mitchell Trubisky just really messed me up, and
yeah.
I don't know what to do. Like I wanted to take, I didn't want Mitch Trubisky, and now I don't know how to get that taste out of my mouth, or I have no idea. But I would say the Matt Nagy experiment has failed, and I agree with those that are calling for his firing. But I'll pass it to you here.
Yeah. On the subject of having considering all 3 quarterbacks to start, it's just like, what are you doing? Have you just completely given up? You just like, any one of them will do. I honestly don't know how I've gotten it this far. you know. Oh man. Yeah, I remember one of my professors who was a Bears fan. She's literally just like, the whole front office needs to go. Just or maybe the whole team needs to go. Like, this team is just so beyond fixing. It just needs to be completely upended. And the main problem for Justin Fields last game was that he just didn't have any blocking. It sort of reminds me of, well, it wasn't as, it was a more extreme example of Tom Brady with the Patriots his past couple of years with their offensive line issues. Like, Tom Brady, obviously the greatest quarterback of all time, but he cannot throw the ball if defensive linemen are coming at him in 1.5 seconds. So, with Justin,
I will say, I think this is, I think that's exactly why Trevor Lawrence is starting too early. I think Gardner Minshew should have been the guy, and it's all to do with the offensive line. Anyway, yeah, continue on.
Well, the thing is like, if you don't start him, at the beginning of the season, when do you start him?
That's you're talking Justin Fields now, right?
Or just any of the rookie quarterbacks, but maybe, sure, Justin Fields.
I think just because you buy a Ferrari, right, doesn't mean that you have to drive it, especially when it's storming outside, right? If I bought a Ferrari, and so that's my thinking. Even if he had to sit for 2 years while they're rebuilding the offensive line, especially for the Jaguars, I think Gardner Minshew is a fine option to at least lead them to mediocrity, which is all they could hope for. With the current state of things in Jacksonville, and with the Bears too. I thought that the approach of starting Andy Dalton to start the year was a fine option, because the Bears are probably striving toward mediocrity this year. So why roll out your Ferrari in the middle of a thunderstorm is kind of my question on that. It doesn't make any sense. And we saw what happened with Sam Darnold. He's coming back and looking like a franchise quarterback because his situation is one that's conducive to his success. So Tyler, yes.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So are you thinking Justin Fields shouldn't play because you're worried about him getting injured or something if he plays now?
I think that's definitely part of it. I mean, do you remember the hit that he took? I believe it was in the preseason. It just completely blindsided. It looked like it looked a lot worse than it ended up being. I think his helmet popped off, and at that point I was like, okay, they should probably sit this guy. So that's probably a big part of it is the injury thing. You don't want to see, like RG3, injuries kind of handicapped, no pun intended, his career. And that's something you definitely don't want to see, especially after you missed on Mitchell Trubisky only a few years prior. So now you've had to waste 2 top draft picks on one quarterback that didn't pan out, and another quarterback that you risk getting injured if you roll them out too early when the best your team is going to do this year is, again, mediocre. So actually, I think that injury is the biggest thing. And also, it's not a foregone conclusion that Sam Darnold is the standard when it comes to, okay, he started in a bad situation, but still he's a good QB and he was able to find himself so far in this better situation in Carolina. Yep. So who knows if you start Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence off on a bad foot, who knows if they recover just mentally, whatever it might be. It might not be a physical injury. It might just be they got off on the wrong foot, or the team did. So yeah, I just think all around it's a bad thing. There's just because you draft a quarterback high and because the fan base and social media is screaming in your ear saying start him doesn't mean, like, the GM, the head coach, the front office people, the team knows their situation better than anybody else on the outside, anybody on Twitter for sure. So, you know, at the beginning of the season, I thought it was kind of admirable of Nagy to be so steadfast in his decision to start Andy Dalton to start the year. Even if the fan in me wanted to see Justin Fields, right? The logical me was like, okay, well, this makes sense. Wow. I respect this decision.
Hot take alert.
Right? Yeah. But, you know, now he's completely lost all credibility for me. And I'm just happy the Packers get to play the Bears twice this year. That's at this point. So
yeah. Not much of a rivalry anymore, is it?
Right. Really not this year, at least, and not the past couple of years, to be honest. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Do you have any last words on that?
Nah, that's, well, one thing I just thought of was about Justin Fields. Do you know the Instagram account Freezing Cold Takes?
I don't, but I think I can interpret the gist.
Okay, yeah. So, you know, they posted a picture of a Justin Fields quote, and I think it was during the preseason he said this, and it was like, you know, honestly, the pace of the game, it seems slower to me than I expected. And then here he is in his first game, just getting blown out of the water.
Right. Did they have a first down in that game? Wasn't there some absurd stat where they?
Oh yeah, well, first of all, Justin Tucker's kick was I think it was more yards. It was more yards than the Bears had all game. 66 yards for Justin Tucker. You know, less than that for the whole game for the Bears.
Oh, it's just painful. I feel for those Bears fans, and that's a lot coming from somebody wearing this kind of a shirt. So that's rough.
Yeah, like I'm not a Bears fan either, but just still, it pains me to see a team doing that badly, and their coach just has lost all credibility, as you said. And I think it would utterly shock me if they don't win this game if Matt Nagy isn't fired. But as I said, the whole organization is screwed up. So it might not even happen. Ryan Pace would be like, oh, this is fine.
This is good.
This isn't terrible at all. This is how a football team is supposed to play, you know, year after year.
So they got the Lions this week. It looks like. So two teams that are coming off some heartbreak here.
Yeah, I right now I definitely think the Lions are going to win that game. Right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Dan Campbell is 10 times a better coach than Matt Nagy will ever be.
The Lions are going to win some games this year, that's for sure. They're a better team than their record says right now.
Yeah, and they almost beat the Ravens.
Statement. Right, they almost beat the Ravens, and they were beating the Packers at halftime a week prior. So it wasn't until the second half where the train kind of went off the rails for him. But I think this is a blowout win, and we'll see who starts at quarterback. I'll tune in
Who
just to
knows?
see who's starting at quarterback,
Yeah,
but that's about
I don't
it.
even
So
I don't even think Matt Nagy knows who's
probably
starting
not.
right now.
Hopefully, it comes to him in a dream or something like
Yeah.
that. We'll see.
Yeah. How are we
Okay.
doing on time, Tyler?
Yeah, so I think just for time's sake, let's skip over. We were going to talk about the Chiefs here for a second, but let's
Hmm.
skip over that for now, and we'll come back to it if time allows.
Okay.
Um, but let's hop to Tom Brady's return to New England this weekend.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So we have I'm going to let you kind of set the stage here. You know the history here better than I do. And my take on this is not a hot one. So I'm going to let you take the reins here, set the
Oh,
stage for
okay.
us.
All right. Yeah. So the Patriots playing the Bucs this Sunday night at Gillette Stadium. It's going to be Tom Brady's first time back at Gillette Stadium playing the Patriots since he left the team in March of 2020. And there's a sizable number. Well, I'm not sure exactly the exact statistics, but there's a good portion of Patriots fans who were like, Tom Brady's dead to us. Once he left us, he doesn't mean anything to us anymore. Which, like,
I'm
I'm not
going to
sure.
stop you real quick.
Yeah.
Did you see the comments, Bill Belichick's comments this week about,
Oh yeah.
like, it wasn't the Patriots' decision. They would have welcomed Tom back with open arms. Tom just thought that there was a better opportunity in Tampa. Do you think that comment, that kind of like lifting up the veil of how things happen, do you think that amplifies kind of this sour taste that Patriots fans have in their mouth?
Yeah, I think it partially does. I think it partially doesn't.
What's your personal opinion on this whole thing?
I think that Tom Brady was right to leave, and I think Belichick is in the wrong here. Belichick and Kraft, they didn't do enough to want to keep Brady. They were just sort of like complacent with him, and then he was like, guys, you're really not going to pay me any more or give me more offensive weapons. It's sort of like what happened with the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. He's just like, hey, you're not going to give me any more offensive weapons. Like, I'm pissed,
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me because from a front office standpoint, I could kind of see how they might have been, between a rock and a hard place, because the dude's how old is he? 40, 45? Is he older than
40, 44 right now?
44. Okay.
Yeah.
So, as a front office person, you have to be saying to yourself, all right, this guy, maybe we get another good year out of him, another good 2 years out of him, right? At most. But he's the type of dude that he's going to be 55 and still slinging it, provided he has like friggin' Mike Evans and Goodwin and all these guys that they're Gronk to throw to. I mean, and an offensive line to protect him. And so, to say they took a gamble on not re-signing a 44-year-old quarterback is kind of a ridiculous thing to say if you're talking about anybody besides Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
So it's an interesting case, that's for sure. I mean, look, my personal take on this is that I'm interested to see how he's received by the fans, for sure. But as far as like the game goes, look, I don't think that Tom goes back to New England and loses to a rookie QB. I just don't think that happens.
Yeah, me neither.
No matter who's coaching on the other sideline, I actually think this is something of a blowout. And that's, that's acknowledging that the Patriots have played better than I thought they would play at the start of the year. But yeah, beyond the homecoming aspect of it, I don't think there's an actual like game type story here. Like, oh, it's going to be close. I really don't think it's going to be close. I don't know if you have different thoughts on that.
No, I feel the same way. And as a Patriots fan, who's still a pretty diehard Patriots fan, even though Brady has left. Yeah, I would not be surprised if this is not a close game. Like,
Have a loss too. I mean,
Yeah.
Brady's a villain, that's for sure. He's a villain for a reason, because when he loses, he comes back and just torches whoever's in the way next week. So
yeah. Yeah. This yeah, the Patriots, although they have improved slightly from last year, they're still nowhere near the level they were with Brady and Edelman and Gronk.
Right.
And so yeah, with Brady and the talented roster that they have on both sides, really, on offense and defense. Chris Evans, I mean, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, both having pretty good years. Gronk is having a great year. Also, he had 2 touchdowns that last game. So Gronk is still performing at a very high level right now still. So yeah, I won't be surprised if the Buccaneers blow out the Patriots. Yeah, I'd like to see a close game. I'm sort of like, I'm a Patriots fan and I'm also a Brady fan. So I don't know how many people are still in that camp. I would say probably, I'd like to say still a fair amount, but I am still, when it gets down to it, I want the Patriots to win because they are my team. Even though I want to see Tom Brady succeed, not here. Even though I think he's going to. But in an ideal world, it's a close game. The Patriots win, but I don't think that's going to happen. So
that's super interesting. I had similar thoughts when over the offseason, Aaron Rodgers was whether he was contemplating or not. The talk was that he might jump teams. And I was thinking to myself, what would I do in that situation? Like, would I remain like super loyal to the Packers how would I go about? So that's interesting to hear you say that you're going to ride with the Patriots because that's your team, but like in the same breath, that's super interesting. So I'm glad that I don't have to struggle with that one.
And enjoy it while you can, because when Tom Brady first left, I bet all Pats fans are having an existential crisis. It was like Brady is the only quarterback we've ever known pretty much for the past 20 years.
People our age, it's like that's necessarily true, right? He's been the quarterback there since I was born. So
like what are we gonna do? And so it was really tough, and I think there's definitely just an emotional connection with people like saying they don't like Tom Brady anymore since he left, is just like I think it's just they wanted Tom Brady to stay a Patriot, and I would have liked that too, but at the end of the day, the man can do what he wants. He's
business.
He's a free man. It's a business, and if you have a chance to play with actually like competent wide receivers besides Edelman, and a really good defense, and
an illustrious coach. I mean, he really didn't fall that far off with Bruce Arians. From Bill Belichick to Bruce. There's not a big fall off there. So it makes sense. It makes sense.
I think it definitely makes sense. So it's going to be quite the storyline.
It will be. I'm excited to watch. I'm glad it's on Sunday night, and I'm glad I can watch it a little bit. So,
and Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth are my favorite broadcast team by far. How about you?
They're just classic. So, I mean, I got to give a nod to Eli and Peyton on Monday nights. They've kind of slid in as it's just fun. It's just fun. It's just a lot of fun. But I will say that I really do appreciate the normal, quote unquote, normal Monday night. Oh my God, what's his name?
John Gruden?
I'm forgetting his name. Not Gruden. They got
Joe Tessitore.
He's the normal. He's normal one, but they hired. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna think of his name right after this. Former player, been on a host of ESPN shows over the years. Louis Riddick.
Oh, okay.
I think that he gives analysis during the game that's on par with like the Tony Romos, or even the Eli's and the Peyton Mannings. I really enjoy. It kind of sucks that those two are on the same game each week because I would very much enjoy to listen to them both. But I would say in terms of commentators, like classic commentators, Louis Riddick is my favorite one so far, and he's only been doing it for 3 games, so hopefully he keeps it up. Yeah. But Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels, classic. I love them all the same.
Yeah, I'm not honestly, Tyler. I'm not sure about those picks because you picked people that have barely been doing broadcasting.
This is true.
And so I don't know. It's an interesting take, but that's sort of the whole premise behind this podcast, I guess, is an alternative take, and that's definitely an alternative take right there. If I've ever heard one.
But we'll see how it plays out. I hope they bring him back. The Booger McFarland experiment failed for obvious reasons. It's become quite the meme.
Honestly, another hot take. I didn't think Booger was that bad. Like he had a lot of enthusiasm for the game, which I like. I love to see that, and it was a unique location where he just be in that lift near the stadium, and I'm just like,
I couldn't. I couldn't do it with the lift. I could not do it with that lift. I had to switch the channel because this man was. I couldn't do it. It was too funny for me. I do agree though. His enthusiasm is unmatched. Great dude. Seems like just a great dude across the board. Obviously loves football. Yeah. Just him in the commentator booth. It was, and on his little lift was just too much for me. But we'll see. Now he's on is it prime time with Boomer?
Oh
which
yeah.
I think is a perfect. They both got just so much enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And that's what you're there for, right? For those shows, that's what I'm here for. Exactly.
back.
It's my favorite thing to hear on Monday morning before going to school when I was young. Was friggin' Chris Berman breaking down the games from the night before.
Yeah, the Oakland Raiders. they're just so many classic phrases.
Honestly, there are. He's gonna have too many T-shirts when it gets to the time where he retires. But all right, so we're running a bit short on time here. So I'll pose the question to you. Do you want to go back and talk about the Chiefs, or do you want to move on to some fantasy discussion?
Let's do some fantasy discussion because I feel like the Chiefs have gotten enough coverage these past few years.
I agree. And I just will say, Josh Gordon, you know what? I wrote an article kind of predicting which team Josh Gordon would end up going to. And the Chiefs were just like, everybody wants to go to the Chiefs, and I'm just tired of it. And you know what, Josh Gordon, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed, Josh Gordon. Very disappointed. I get it, but I'm disappointed. Anyway, moving on. Let's dive into some fantasy discussion here. So this past week, you and I actually played, and you just mopped the floor with me. I had an awful week. And I should say, Dalvin Cook was starting.
Yeah, I started Dalvin Cook, and he didn't even play.
You still, you're right, and you still beat me by what is it here, like 30 points? 30 points? So
yeah. That's the funny thing.
I just had an awful week. Amari Cooper didn't show up. I'm gonna have to. I'm putting Allen Robinson on the trade block. The Chicago experiment is not working. I'm hoping somebody will bite. but hopefully nobody that's in the league is going to watch this podcast before I do that. But we'll see what happens there. But just across the board, it was just an awful day for everybody on my team except for Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, the two set it forget it guys in the league that you can count on pretty much every week. But other than that, nobody scored above 10 points for me, and it just rough, very rough all the way around. So
the sort of the dark horse that I wasn't expecting is, how about Mike Williams, huh? 33 points this week. Wow. Yeah.
Look out for Mike Williams. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. They might end the season as the best 1-2 punch in the league. I think the Chargers are they're going to be a much better team than they're given credit for. Hats off to Mike Williams. I think this is a huge year for, provided they stay healthy, for Williams and for Keenan Allen, especially in year 2 with Justin Herbert. Herbert had 4 touchdowns last week? Some absurd number.
Let me check it. I think that sounds right. I actually have him as a quarterback in one of my other leagues. Yes, he did have 4 touchdowns and 281 yards.
Right. So an efficient day. I mean, the kid's a stud, and he's got great wide receivers to throw to. Mike Williams is sneaky. Where did you take him? Well, you probably took him later, I would assume, right, in the draft.
I don't have Mike Evans on this team.
Mike Williams. Sorry,
Mike Williams. Let's see. Yeah, I definitely did not take him very early. Let's see. I drafted him with pick. Let's see. The way Sleeper does it is a little bit confusing, but I
agree. The app is a bit confusing.
Yeah. I think it says 1209. So I think I drafted him in the 12th round with the 9th pick.
What a steal. Late round pick, honestly, a huge steal. I mean, that's one that, that's a great pick for you and for anybody else who took him that late. I think that's going to be a kind of a weekly contributor for you. I think that your team, just kind of looking at it again, your team is kind of set up for long-term success here. Calvin Ridley's going to get going. Cortland Sutton's been going, even though he had low yardage last game. He still caught all 5 of the balls thrown his way.
Obviously, Lamar Jackson is a great fantasy quarterback. You know, he got
always every week
the passing and the rushing. You know, the rushing, that's most of it. You know,
right. Once Odell's back. You know what I mean? That should be a plug and play type situation. So I think your team looks great going forward. My team, not so much. I'm a bit worried about my running back situation right now. I'm starting Jonathan Taylor and Tony Pollard as
Jonathan
my 1 and
Taylor 2. is not doing well. I have him in one of my other leagues. It's a league that I forgot was going on, so I ran back. I was actually doing errands, and then my one of my friends called me just like, Cooper, the draft's happening right now. And I was like, oh my God, how could I miss the draft? And so I came back, and then auto pick had drafted me Jonathan Taylor, and basically my first 4 picks, and I'm just like, all right, I guess we'll see where this takes us. And it hasn't taken us very well for Jonathan Taylor.
I will say that the Colts schedule has been super unforgiving to start the year too. They had Seattle, which actually had a decent game against Seattle. But then the Rams and the Titans, two good defensive teams. Next week they got Miami, so that should be a bit better of an occasion. But then right back to it with Baltimore. So we'll see. I got love for Jonathan Taylor because he's a Wisconsin alma mater, incredible college running back. So hopefully that starts trending upward. I definitely need it, because if Jonathan Taylor doesn't have running back 1 type numbers, I'm going to be hurting in weeks ahead.
Oh yeah. I'm going to be
way too many injuries.
Royally pissed.
Exactly right. But let's see. Who do you got next week? Do you have Matt or it's not me, obviously, but
I am
you've already played Matt, right?
playing Team Invasion of the Birds.
Okay, yeah. So people that people that are not on this podcast, it goes without saying.
Yeah.
It's like I'm projected to lose big time. So that's great to see. But we'll see. We'll see how things shake out.
Right now I have an 84% chance to win. Wow, that's quite a high percentage.
I like those odds.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen that percentage for myself yet, so I like those odds.
Yeah. Yeah. So next week, it's tough to always set your fantasy lineup, especially when you have 3, because I'm on the college tennis team, and so we've actually had matches like these past 3 Sundays. So it's really been tough trying to set your fantasy football lineup. I oftentimes forget, and it's just hope I don't have any injuries in the lineup. And Dalvin Cook was luckily the only slip up I've had so far. So
it wasn't even a slip up. It was just like throwing salt on the wound there.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I mean, those are the best weeks when just kind of by sheer luck, as it would have it, those are the best weeks. So I mean, the state of my team right now, I don't have much hope going into it, but I've kind of found that in doing this podcast and writing for Jersey column here, I've actually been less devoted to setting my lineup and scouring the waiver wire and things of that nature. I thought I'd be more into it. I don't have the time. I just don't have the time to make it all happen. So,
man,
I don't know. I don't know how Matt did this week,
guys. Yeah. And also I'm in 3 leagues. Remember when we were setting this league up, and one guy said he was in, I think he said he was in 14 leagues, and I'm like, hey man, that's about 12 too many.
Honestly, I don't know how anybody could keep track of that. That's a full-time job at that point. I would hope that he has some money on these leagues, because there's got to be some ROI there.
That man is mentally insane. I feel like he needs to go to a mental institution. It's like, what are you in for? Just I'm in 14 fantasy football leagues. It's just oh God, why? Don't do that. Yeah,
I'm gonna prescribe you this. Stop doing that. That's it. It looks like I was just looking at Matt's team here. We're gonna talk about his team without him knowing. So I'm sure he'll love that. But it looks like where'd it go? I just had it up here. Looks like last week, he lost, but his team scored 149 points. He lost to Anthony, who scored 152. Wow. That was quite the high scoring game. My goodness, both those are the worst kinds of losses. When your team shows up, but the other team is just also firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Those hurt. Those hurt a lot, because it's those types of weeks with that kind of production just don't happen very often, or at least not consistently. So yeah, he's at 1-2. You're at 2-1 up here, and I'm also at 2-1 now. After you handed me my first loss. So we'll see how things shake out here. It'll be interesting. We might have to put some podcast stakes on it. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Great. I have to go soon to go to tennis practice, just more sports, big sports guys. We are, so
tennis is a tough one, but yeah, we can definitely wrap this up here. So yeah, it was a great episode. Despite missing Matt will be back next week for all of our fans out there that also missed him just as much as us. Yeah, real quick before we go here, last thing, let's just do some game picks for Thursday Night Football. Just since this most likely will be released prior to the game, if not right after. So let's see, this week on Thursday Night Football, we have the Bengals and the, and Jacksonville. So what do you think here? I mean, I'll throw it out there.
This could go either way. I
think so too. Yeah. I think the Bengals are going to pull this one out. I actually think that we're going to see just how bad Jacksonville is on Thursday night here. And I think this is actually a bit of a blowout in favor of the Bengals. So we'll see what happens. But that's my thought.
Yeah. I think I'm also going to go with the Bengals. Joe Burrow last year, even when he had a terrible offensive line, he sort of still does. But luckily, they got Jamar Chase, and him and Joe Burrow really seem to be working well together, both LSU guys. So I think they're going to pull this one out. Speaking of Jacksonville, another coach that's on the hot seat, Urban Meyer, is already in over his head. Bengals win it.
Yep. Big shout out to Jamar Chase weathering the storm of the preseason, all the talk about him dropping the ball and things like that. It's great to see him catching balls and being productive. So having success. So, all right. Good stuff. Week 3 is in the books. And we will see everyone back here for week 4 of the I'm going to Stop You Right There podcast. Pleasure doing business with you.
See you guys.